Welcome to another episode of Accessibility Insights. I'm Eugene Woo, the CEO of Venngage. Venngage is a accessible document platform. So if you have problems with your documents and PhDs, check out Venngage. Today I'm chatting with Paul Chious. Paul is currently pursuing a PhD at USC. He is a software engineer with disabilities who uses his expertise in program analysis and software testing to tackle some of the biggest and most under-addressed accessibility challenges in the software engineering world. As a beneficiary and advocate of assistive technologies, he believes that accessible software can enhance the quality of life and create equal opportunities for people with disabilities. With over 5 years of research experience, Paul has secured over $495,000 in NSF grants to develop an automated accessibility auditing tool. His work has led to 7 publications and several peer-reviewed manuscripts, all focusing on advancing digital accessibility. Welcome to the podcast, Paul.
Thank you, Eugene. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. Just like how we start every single episode, I like to hear your story. How did you begin your journey into digital accessibility?
So I was, as far as I know, I've always been a tech guy since I was very little. I remember getting my first computer when I was in my 3rd grade. It was really like old computer, nothing the computer right now, but I started using computer at a very early age. And unfortunately, I was injured in my sophomore year of high school. I got into a car accident. And after high school, so I graduated high school with my class. And then, with many helping hands. And then after graduation, it was like, that's it for me, right? In order to next, so with the help of the California Department of Rehabilitation, they actually try to enroll me to community college so I can, take some classes, I guess it's the norm of what people do. So at the community college, I decided to major in computer information systems. It's it's part of the business division. At that time, because I'm not a very good math person, I was very intimidated by math. So, and I know computer science requires a lot of math. So I kind of want to do CIS, I want to know what it's about. So, and then I took, my first programming class. It was in Visual Basic. And that's where I learned the basics of computer programming. Immediately, I was fascinated because, I've always been proficient in using computer programs like, Photoshop or video editing software. I know how to use computers, but I didn't know that from computer programming, we can actually build these softwares that people use. It's like up one level. That was really cool. So, I got really interested in programming. And then later on, I had not had enough confidence. I switched my major to CS. And then so I can develop software to do more things for people. I ended up spending 11 years at the community college. And finally, I was able to transfer to a 4-year university. I did not start working on digital accessibility project until during my master's. I remember it was the summer of 2016. And I had a potential interview for internship, for a job internship. And then during the interview, I was asked to be in charge. They asked me about accessibility, do I know standard like HTML, like the basics. And then I was asked to be in charge of improving the accessibility of the company software. At that time, I didn't. That was back in 2016. It was before the domino accessibility lawsuit, gained national attention. Like it was before all these accessibility stuff became mainstream. And that was the first time I heard about it. And I was like, this is really cool. Because I always wanted to do something in technology to help people with disabilities. So that I was I loved it right away. And yeah, that's when I got exposed. And I'm thankful for the job interview, even though I never went to the interview. But from that experience, I was exposed to accessibility. And I became interested so much that I started learning myself. And then I just study on the web content accessibility guidelines, learning stuff about myself. And through my master's, I wrote a Chrome extension to test accessibility issues in web pages. It was like a summer project. And well, that was how I started with accessibility.
Okay. Is that Chrome extension still available?
It was never published to the store. It was just a local thing.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got
so
it.
I never published it.
Oh, why not?
I don't think they probably have some checks that you need to you know they vet the programs, and it's not really good. It was just a summer thing that I spent on it.
Got it. Got it. Do you remember, kind of just what you said at the start when you really got interested in programming? Because I also remember when I got, I also was a software engineer. I remember when I started, um, and I learned Basic, so kind of, basically similar to Visual Basic, same language basically.
And
And I started creating games. That was my first introduction to programming. What was your first
oh,
what were the things that you created initially when you learned how to program?
so because I was simply I was taking the programming class on the computer information system. So basically, we used the .NET framework. We basically just do drag and drop on the UI, and then
Yeah,
we code the backend. They were mostly school projects, right? They were telling us to
right. Yeah,
how do you how do you do if statements? How do you do for loops, right? How do you say condition? Like so, it was just really like a small project. I remember there was one that we had to do like a reservation thing because after all,
yeah,
it's under CIS, it's a business perspective, right? And then we had to do like a car reservation where you can use drop downs to select radio buttons, check boxes, and perform like. But I turned that project into something crazy because I always overdo it. So
okay,
I turned that project into something crazy. And actually the textbook that we used, the author of the textbook became aware of what I did on the project because I did it. I turned it into an airline system, itinerary
oh,
system, where you
wow,
can book
okay,
flights and order meals. Like it was just repetitive of different, it was I put a like different fun stuff into it. It's not just the
right,
points.
right.
And then having beautiful UIs and of course at that time I probably don't know if my app would be accessible or not, knowing what I
Right,
know
right,
now. But that was my
right.
first projects, just to build these, simple
Okay,
while I learned the programming language.
okay. Wow, but you turned it into like a airline kind of a in-flight kind of a system, a booking system and all that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, I want to talk a little bit about. So you also touched on the point that when I know 2016, there's the big lawsuit against Domino's, and then accessibility became more mainstream. How about your personal experience? Can you talk a little about how you use assistive technology or AT, and what kind of barriers you found when you were using the web back then?
So I personally I access I cannot move my arms. I can only move my head. So I personally use this technology that is like a head tracking mouse. It tracks the movement of my head, and then so the cursor moves the way my head moves. And I have this snip and pop switch that acts like the left and right clicks. So if I snip, it's like a left click. A pop is like a right click. So basically, I'm fully access to the mouse, the point and click interface. That's my assistive technology. And of course, I mean, this, in my opinion, uh, being able to use a mouse is really already a blessing because nowadays, after GUI, after we transition from command line to GUI, it's all about mouse, right? All about drag and drop, all about
Right.
these. So, so I really could do a lot of things. And yeah, by the way, even though I don't have physical access to the keyboard, I type using the on-screen keyboard. It's like a keyboard on like a screen with the layout on the screen. And I just click letter by letter. And of course, that became better because now it has autocomplete. So
Right.
that allows me to type faster, but not still slower than the keyboard. But yeah, having access to the mouse really allow me to do a lot of things. But there are also, as you mentioned, few things I cannot do. For example, like I like to play games. Uh, so my favorite game right now is Dota. Dota is a mobile game, and yeah, like older people play. But uh, that game is you mainly access the game through the mouse. Of course, if you have the keyboard, you can use hotkeys to make to play the game better. But I have access to that game, so that's why I guess that's why I like it. And also, being able to use the mouse, not the keyboard, like because I don't have access to the scroll wheel, right? So like when I open web
Right.
pages, there's I always use the scroll bar, but I guess most people just scroll using the scroll wheel, so they don't even put the cursor to the edge of the screen. And some applications they're not built well. They don't have the scroll bar. I can't scroll, so I have to like try to use the down arrow on the constant key or like they're like small things, like sometimes I would enter into a full screen application and then I can't get out because it requires an enter like an escape
Right. Escape.
to
Yeah.
get out. So I'm stuck. So even though I'm able to use a mouse and under the Windows environment, I can do a lot. Like one time I was trying when I first got my MacBook, I wanted to give it a try. I realized I couldn't set a password because the on-screen keyboard you can't access that until you're logged in. So how do I type the password before I log in? Right? These are the little
Right.
details. So, but for the most part, I could do a lot with the key, with the mouse.
Right. And some of your research now has been focused on keyboard accessibility. Yeah, why keyboard specific? Why keyboard accessibility specifically? I mean, just given what you've told us, that you're mainly a mouse. You control the computer using mainly a mouse.
Mm. Oh yeah, because I guess I I I chose to work on keyboard for two main reasons. Because after getting into the PhD program, I was looking at like current problems and what I could do to improve the current solutions. And I realized the state-of-the-art web accessibility audit tools, they were simply running like static scans on the DOMs of the web page
Yep.
on the for specific properties to detect accessibility violations. But I realized it's not enough to address the operability aspect, right? Because we have perceivable operable, right? The operability aspect is a big aspect. But like keyboard, right? But the keyboard accessibility issues, it requires you to interact with the web page. So you can like so the issues will be exposed, right? It doesn't just show by looking at anything. So that's why they're really limited. And it turned out that keyboard accessibility was an area that lacked a lot of attention in research. That's why I decided to go deeper into this domain problems. Uh, besides, besides being an interesting problem for my research as a PhD student, it was also a problem that was very personal to me, as you mentioned, right? What, how do I use the computer, right? I use the mouse, and I just mentioned like how sometimes even a mouse, even from my perspective, I cannot access a lot of things, right? So I rely on using this mouse, and I can my uh. So this experience kind of gave me a unique perspective on the importance of software quality, like the access the excessive technology is there, right? I'm on the computer, but now it's the software issue. For example, the scroll bar, right? It's like a
Right.
design, so it's software issue. So yeah, I mean, if you have asked me about accessibility stuff like before my injury, I would never know that so many people use the computer to access technology in different ways. Like we just use most people just use the mouse, right? Like
Right.
they cannot envision what other people have to go through ATs, like what blind people have to do, what people cannot like use a keyboard. So I guess this was the reason that made me focus on this keyboard research because I empathize with the keyboard users
Right.
who are affected, when they can access stuff. It kind of I can relate. That's so even though I'm the complete opposite, I'm not a keyboard user. I'm a only mouse user. But the fact that I can relate that um, kind of made me want to focus on this
Right.
keyboard problem. And I had a funny story about the keyboard. So when I was a teenager, I would okay, there's no video console allowed in my house, right? My house has a strict rule. It's like no video games.
Mhm.
So the only way I can access video games was to be on the computer, for pretending to be home to do homework. Because when I'm on the computer, I'm doing schoolwork, and you can't stop me from that. So anyway, my grandma caught on, right? So sometimes I would get in trouble, and she would because she doesn't know computers. So the way the way uh, she handles me was she. So at that time I had a wireless keyboard. So she would hide my keyboard. She would just take it away. She would hide it.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know why she didn't hide the mouse as well, but she took my keyboard and hid it in her closet. I know where it is, but I just can't go get it. Right. So
Right.
and then I realized in Windows that was oh man, that was old days. Like Windows 98. I realized there was a functionality called on-screen keyboard, like the stuff I'm using right now.
Right.
So, wow, I'm just using the computer with a mouse back then. Like it didn't affect me, right? Even though like I can still browse the web, but I cannot play games, But I found that feature in under the menus, right? But I had no idea
Right.
why it's there. I just know I could use it. So that was kind of funny because not until recently when I was doing my dissertation on keyboard accessibility, I realized accessibility has been around me always. It just can couldn't see it before because, I wasn't exposed to it and didn't have the knowledge. That was a funny little story that, I actually, before my injury, I kind of encountered
Right. Yeah. Wow.
what I'm
So
using right now.
yeah. So you were using the on-screen keyboard as a teenager because you got your keyboard confiscated.
Yes, yes.
So from that research, I know you did some, you worked on auditing tools and you use this thing called dynamic analysis. And I'll be honest, I don't actually know what it means. So maybe you can explain, what does that research, go into? What's the difference between your method using dynamic analysis, or no, what is dynamic analysis, and the current, looking at just the DOM, the static comparisons that they do now, that most, I would say, testing tools do now.
Oh, dynamic is just really like a big term, right? It really shows with respect to static approaches. So in program analysis, you have static analysis where you analyze the code, right? You analyze something that's not changing, right? Dynamic is sort of, but it, uh, maybe not so caught up on the terms because we are also dynamically uh, analyzing the static DOM. So basically, dynamic, I meant that my approach is not just do what current approaches did, right? They just scan the page. It
Right.
doesn't do that because it needed, as I mentioned, it needed more than that. Right? The biggest challenge was there was no existing work that does anything for operability, the keyboard. So keyboard accessibility testing was really mostly a manual effort, where like either skill practitioners, they know what they're doing, or you have like actual usability testers who does this kind of stuff. It's a manual thing. So I want to try to automate this approach, right?
Okay.
So that's why, and so during this process, I realized I needed a model that could capture the way keyboard users interact with web applications in a sort of like a mathematical abstraction. With this model, I was able to apply like different analysis techniques to understand the navigation of keyboard users. So, so I cannot just scan anything, right? I need to do this interactive model, right? I don't know if you have you tried to use the computer using only the keyboard before?
Yeah, yeah, I have. Yeah, yeah. I do some keyboard testing of our own tool, and also
Oh,
just to read documents. Yeah. Yes.
yeah, cool. Yeah, you're probably a power user too. Yeah, the the majority of it,
I,
yeah, yeah. Oh,
I'm gonna
yeah,
say I'm not a power user, but yeah, I do use I do use it because of my work in digital accessibility, so I do use it.
oh,
Uh,
okay. Yeah, that's good. So you must know it's tedious, right? It's not like
it
point and
is,
click,
yeah.
right? The majority of we use
Yep.
the point and click, where we can just move the mouse cursor on any
Mhm.
web component we want to interact with. But for the audience that don't know much about keyboard, with keyboard, you're using the keyboard. You have a keyboard cursor that's focused somewhere on the page, and you have to basically press tab to move
Yep.
with the keyboard cursor forward to the next element, or press shift tab to go backward to the previous element. And you do this, you keep pressing it one by one until you get to reach the element you want to interact with. So it's like it's a sequential thing. It's not so clear like the mouse. So that kind of made the problem interesting. So because of this intricacy, I built this UI. I built a keyboard UI crawler that kind of systematically and automatically explore what kind of capture the
Oh,
different navigation behaviors
right.
and then into a model. And then defining this novel framework that I could use to solve multiple problems. I think that was the biggest challenge when I doing this kind of research. It's not so we no longer we're not scanning anything statically. It's kind of dynamic because we're interacting with the page at the same time capturing all the different possible navigation into a model, and we use this model to detect. It was quite effective. So we were able to detect issues where keyboard users or are not able to access your elements. Like for example, when users have one element by element, moving forward, oftentimes keyboard cursor cannot reach certain elements, right? It just skips over, right? Those
Yep.
are kind of stuff that we can detect with the model, or keyboard traps. Sometimes you get stuck on one element, you can
Right.
move to other parts of the page. So yeah, those are kind of problems the model can detect. And of
Oh, yeah.
course,
Okay. So, oh, that's really
it's,
smart. I was going to say, yeah. I mean, we do keyboard testing manually, as you mentioned. Most people do it manually. Um, and and yeah, I really like the idea of capturing. You're able to crawl what you call basically the keyboard navigation on the page, and then detect these issues that you said, like being trapped or become certain parts are inaccessible. Uh, and do you also are you able to also like build around problems that you said like it takes forever? Sometimes the menu is too long. You have to tab, you know, 100 times before you even get past the top menu. Like there are places where you don't, there's no ability to just skip to the top level. You have to go through every single sub menu or sub menu. Are you able to, so yeah, I would imagine the model, you will be able to develop something that detects those kind of issues as well.
yeah, we definitely can extend the model to handle those skip links, skip navigation, skip to the content. And
Right.
you're right, because of the sequential nature of keyboard navigation, keyboard access, right? It sometimes something so simple for a mouse user. We move over here, we click. It might take 50 turns for someone
Right.
like with a screen reader, right? So yeah, one of the research that we did was involving dialogues, modal dialogues. So when the focus is not properly managed into or out of the dialogue, sometimes
Right.
you do have to
Right.
navigate the whole page, which sometimes can take
Right.
up to hundreds of
Right.
interactions to reach the dialogue or get back to
Yeah.
where you were. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely understand. Well, that's cool
Oh,
that you're
so
you're
yeah. Yeah.
you're doing this area of work too, because man, I was gonna say, being in the industry, it's this stuff is is we have the concept, it's easy to say it on paper, but actually the implementation is another challenge, making it a
Yeah.
reality, right? Being an
Yeah.
automated tool, software engineers, we know so much time involved in implementation and testing to make sure the program is robust. So that's also
Yeah.
something that experienced.
Yeah. So you just reminded me of yeah, with your dialog box. Every single website has the cookie, the GDPR PR cookie thing now, the cookie dialog that you have to say I agree or disagree. And I remember we had a cookie at the bottom. The banner was at the bottom, and you had to navigate all the way to the bottom just to get rid of the cookie banner. And it was just as you described it, like hundreds of a long time before you actually could focus on the banner at the bottom and then click on OK, dismiss the cookie warning, and then you
Yes.
can browse, and then so it was very cumbersome. I mean, we had a actually real life example of that.
Yeah. Yeah, the cookie thing is something that is start appearing on the pages. Sometimes,
Yeah, I
there's
know.
traps in the cookie floater itself.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, when I was doing this dialogue research, these cookie settings, that model used to be very inaccessible. But I think maybe some universal template came out that's accessible. So right now the models involving cookie settings are pretty nice. They're able to initiate into dialogues, trap the focus inside the dialogue, and when the dialogue closes, it puts the focus back to where it was.
Right.
So in that aspect, it's getting better. But I completely don't know what you're saying when it's on the bottom and you have to, it's so cumbersome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So I want to, now we're in the, you know, you've seen how assistive technology has progressed. Um, and there's obviously lots and lots of changes going on right now, especially around AI and all, well, especially around AI and mobile computing. What 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 do you think has been the biggest progress that has happened in AT or assistive technology in the last 10 years?
I personally believe the biggest progression in assistive technology in the past 10 years probably lies in the advancements in mobile devices. Because like we now basically have a portable mini computer in our hands everywhere we go, right?
Yep.
It might not be computing fast, but we have it, and it's getting better every year. And the ability to, since iPhone, we're able to develop these mobile applications, right? So more and more people can contribute to mobile apps. I think that really helps because the mobile devices have sensors, right, like cameras and microphone that can also help. So I really think mobile devices alone, like it can alone be an AT, like, right, like maybe the blind people can acknowledge their surroundings with the help of a camera. They can tell them what's going on,
Yep.
right, with computer vision. Also, I know there has been work done with indoor navigation for people with blindness. Like, so the mobile device is really a good thing that happened in the past 10 years.
What I was
Oh,
going to ask you, do you have any, what are your thoughts on AI?
on AI,
AI and AT. Yeah.
I think uh, AI is so definitely something that is really nice and that's in the past couple of years has gotten a lot of attention because it can do a lot of things. Like uh, software models can make smarter decisions, right? Things are looking good, and like la large language models can understand natural language and like write simple scripts and templates. Like I was doing research this week with my partner, and we just needed a quick Python script to collect all the data from the Excel spreadsheet, and I just give it a prompt. It gave me the whole program. Of course, we have to tweak
Wow.
it. We have to tweak it, right? But it's just so much faster than browsing like Stack Overflow for like one piece at a time. So, and I think coding for web applications uh, soon maybe will not require people's understanding or in depth of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript anymore because I know like companies like Wix, they're like big on automation, right? The AI is a big thing right now. You give it prompts, you describe what you want on the page, they give you a template. So I think it can really AI has a lot of potential as a tool to simplify things and allow us to pay more focus on accessibility. Of course, the AI itself can incorporate accessibility into it. So I think this is a good thing.
Yeah, I think at the pace that we're going, I mean, it seems like every week there is, you know, that the last large language models and other models too are like progressing very, very quickly. And you mentioned the programming example, I I also, I mean, I haven't programmed in a long time because I used to be a software engineer, but I'm mainly focused on on running the company now. But lately, I've been going back to programming, but I'm not programming from scratch. I'm using, I'm using like ChatGPT to program for me, and I'm
Yes.
just tweaking some stuff here and there. So it's a very different type of programming from when I used to program everything from scratch, and I see that as a pretty interesting and advancement. And soon, maybe who knows, in a year, maybe they can do everything. Like you said, I don't even have to look at the code. You know.
Yeah. That don't worry. It definitely take a long time before AI can start running companies. So you're good.
Who knows? Who knows? I think I remember seeing someone doing research on that. Actually, I have to look it up. Like they trained an AI to like be a man, maybe not a CEO, but it was like a manager or an executive of some sort. It was interesting.
Yeah.
So it's close.
I read
Um,
something like it's right now it's easy because we're progressing. Like say it was able to do like 40%, and then a couple months later
right,
it could do like 60, 80%,
right,
right?
right,
But when you start reaching 90s and you want to progress a little bit, it takes a lot of work.
right.
It's reaching from these 40 to 80 is easy, but
Yep.
getting that 1% between 95 and 96 is
Yeah.
really difficult. So it's hard to say what I don't really know what is gonna happen because uh, my area is in software engineering, not in the machine learning type
Yeah.
area
Yeah.
of computer science. So, but I'm I'm happy to see what's in the future. And of course, I think no matter how advanced the technology is, still about awareness. So people have the
Yep.
mindset to make this future content like accessible alongside advancement. I think in terms of like accessibility, the goal is serving end users, right? Because with people with
Right.
disabilities, so future technology can never take humans out of the equation, and we
Yeah.
really need to
Yeah.
focus on
I
the
mean,
user experience.
yeah. I
Pardon?
100% agree. Yeah. No, it's 100% agree. And I think so on that point on essentially how do you I think the for people in the what I call in the industry who know about digital accessibility, like we kind of live in a bubble, right? Because once, if you're not in this bubble, like most users, for example, don't really know what digital accessibility is. Like you mentioned, they don't know, they don't understand why someone would need to use a mouse to or an assistive technology to browse the web, right? And it may not be obvious. It's not obvious, I would say, to most of the population because and even for me personally, before getting involved in digital accessibility, I also was not aware of, and I've been a software developer for many, many years, for almost 2 decades before I even knew about digital accessibility.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know if from your experience, what are your thoughts on how can we make it more how can we get the larger population to at least understand a little bit about digital accessibility or accessibility in general?
I think, yeah, that's a really good point because, as you said, many people are not aware. Like, for example, like uh, during my studies, like we conducted a survey on the undergraduate software engineering class. And have you ever heard about digital accessibility?
Mhm.
60, 30% have not heard it at all. 60%
Okay.
heard about it, but that never really had just any experience with it, just heard about it. So it's really a because it's not being taught in any of the undergraduate, as far as I know at the moment. There's some
Right.
undergraduate, some engineering. That's in fact we my advisor and I we sort of kind of incorporate accessibility into the undergraduate course curriculum. So it's really good that we were the first to do it. But people don't know. Like I remember when I was I think not many people are working accessibility, not maybe not because they're not interested, because when when I when I did the guest lecture on the software engineering course, many students were very interested. So I think they're not working on it because maybe they're just, like you said, not aware. right?
Yeah.
I mentioned before 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 my accident, maybe I wasn't even aware of it, right? Until I get exposed. So I remember when I was in my undergraduate class, and actually it was the same class, software engineering course. We had to do like a course project. It was like a capstone project, and the professor gave us a vision, right? He's saying, so the goal of this course, you're going to build something, right? He let us envision like we're building a startup,
Oh.
right? Company. Like we're trying to solve a real world problem, try to provide service. And then, you know, because at that time, the startups are like going big, right? Snapchat, Airbnb, all these. So, and, but what I noticed, everybody's project idea were like always something like a match a tutor, like, or the apps that helps you find a parking space. Like, I mean, it's understandable because it's something that they can relate, right? A student coming to
Right.
college cannot find
Right.
parking, that's a problem for them, right? So, yeah, I kind of admire like how like you started your own company, right? You're providing a service, you had a vision, you know how to run it. So yeah, that class sort of taught us, about startup. It's not easy, but what I took away from that class is that not students are not working accessibility projects, and they're not aware. So how can we make it more? I think we like right now we've incorporated into the curriculum, but the course material, but I think it's really about awareness. We have to keep advocating. I like your podcast right now, right? Like I'm glad people were doing this kind of stuff to raise awareness because it is all about awareness.
Yeah, and I think it's great that there is in either community in college or university, like students now are getting exposed to it. Because I certainly was not exposed to it when I was a student. Uh, Definitely, I think putting in the curriculum helps because then everyone that goes through, let's say CS program, at least would either take a course or at least have one chapter on it, one or two
Yeah,
chapters on it, and they will be exposed to it at least. I think that's
yeah,
a good way of spreading awareness because you can start at a very young age when they
yeah.
enter the program. Yeah.
When they go out there in the real world, like even if they're not in depth, like they don't know the topic in depth. Oh, I heard about it. I know what it is,
Yep.
right? You're in a
Yep.
company, you want to make more sense over. I know, yeah, they know where we're coming. This is good. It's
Right.
yeah. This I think because like I I sort of want to touch a little bit about like the awareness aspect with in terms in, with respect to like the advancement in assistive technology, right? Because if we're not aware, right, it's hard to make products that are accessible. Right? I personally view the advancement in assistive technology in two aspects. The first aspect is the progression on accessible technology itself, including making technologies accessible for everyday content. So we're making technology accessible for everyday content. This is like, for example, like the head mouse that I use, right? Or
Mhm.
you control the computer with your tongue, or like new switch devices. We're creating new technology to fit the world environment. And the second part is the progression in making content accessible to current technologies. The content accessible. So this is like making existing technology that is targeted for everyone, but more accessible to people with disability. This is like the PDS stuff that you're
Right.
doing, right? This is like,
Yep. Yep.
in my opinion, most of the progression happens in the latter, in the second part. I think this is because we have so much more content that is available for everyday people as compared to we have specific technologies available for the people in need of assistive technologies. It's like a supply demand
Right.
profitability thing, right? We see Apple and Samsung, they're constantly improving their products. Like year after year, we get a new feature on the iPhone. We add a few more megapixels on the camera. We put more lenses, right? We advertise
Yep.
different things. They're always coming up with innovative ideas so they can remain profitable. But if you look at ATs, whether it's software or hardware, like many of them still have a 90s look. I don't know if you kind of know what I'm talking about, like the cement puff that I use is in a
Yep.
big box, right? Imagine if that's the mainstream, like it wouldn't be like that,
Right. Right.
right? So I think the same applies to technology and software that makes everyone's life easier. For example, like I mentioned, startup companies, Uber and Airbnb. Right now we can book a ride, or we can just book a place for us to stay anywhere, right? And YouTube allows content creation, right? Allows everyone like
Right.
cooking recipes. If you want to do home improvement, you want to do plumbing, you want some videos. So we have all these content creators. And even for students, right? Better studying, calculus, math, like any subject, even coding. All the content is out there, but they focus on general customers. And like assistant technology is pretty much like a follow-up. Like, so how do we make the digital content for like companies, web and mobile apps or PDFs or like I mentioned, YouTube videos. How do we make captions, right?
Right.
We're trying to make these stuff that benefit general people to make them compatible with the good old
Right.
screen readers. So as it's that definitely not a driving force, and which is understandable, I think. So as the technology progresses for everyone, we're just making that stuff accessible to people with disabilities. We're not really looking at how we can come up with new ways. I mean, I think there are research done with that, right? Like maybe in the future, there are like new ways for us to interact with computers, maybe VR, AR, you know,
Yeah.
connect with our brain. So we don't need a keyboard.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the Neuralink. I don't know if you've seen the Neuralink videos where they
Oh,
control with their brains. I mean, I don't know much about it, but I remember seeing some videos.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
I heard
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that who knows, but in the future, all these might come. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
my observation. We're following the trend, and the trend is for general, but we're benefiting from that too. People
Right.
with disabilities are benefiting from that too. But it's not like the main goal. But it's okay. We just
Yeah, I mean
mention.
I think that is unfortunate, like you said, that yeah, it's a you know as you're mentioning, the commercialization aspect is very different from research. Like to come up with a commercial product, there is obviously they're all mostly businesses doing it, so there's the profitability. There's so much involved in it. Starting a company around a product requires also lots of effort, lots of money, funding, and all of that. Yeah, I don't want to go into all that, but yeah,
Uh,
I think that's a big problem for sure. I think it's a big problem that is still out there right now. Yeah, there's not a lot of. I agree with you. The advancement around AT is definitely lagging, but lags a lot from compared to all the mainstream advancement that you see, as you mentioned.
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
We just do our part, right? He- he- I, and we just do our part to try to make whatever's there, people with disability can use it too.
My last question is if someone wants to learn a bit about your research, learn a little bit about you, what's the best way to to get to learn that? Is that your LinkedIn page? Is that maybe other forms of social media?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I haven't, I need to build my own. I'll have my web page up pretty soon on GitHub. I'm working on that. But yeah, I do have a LinkedIn page at the moment, and yeah, I am looking to become. I'm applying for jobs right now, and I'm applying for a professor position. So
Okay.
I'm gonna go into academia. Hopefully, I get the job.
Okay.
So who knows what's gonna happen? But yeah, definitely you'll be able to find me
Okay.
if
Yeah,
you
and
Google my
we'll
name.
add some. Yeah, we'll add your some of the links that we know at the bottom of this podcast as well. Right. Once again, thank you very much, Paul. Really appreciate your time and sharing your story and your research with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Eugene. Glad to be here, and I'm glad to be a part of this podcast so we can all together help raise accessibility awareness.